Hello, everyone. So, one more episode which we are going to have on Zindagi Ka Safar. And I have with me a wonderful human being and my very dear friend who is there. I got to know him as a professional trainer, and he was someone who was very, very effective. And I learned quite a lot about training from him. And then he has evolved, and I think our friendship is now more than 20 years. And he's an artist and he's a singer who is there. He's joining us all the way from Chennai. So, Dada, Zindagi Ka Safar, tell us how it went on till this point in time for you.
Tuhin, lovely to see you. It's been a long time. And my dear friends, I'm Surojit Guha. And Tuhin and I have been more than colleagues, we have been steadfast friends, I think from the year 2003.
Yes.
And for the best part of 8 years, he has suffered me in silence. So when we're talking about suffer, the first part of the suffer is the suffering which Tuhin had to put up with me in the same department of training that we were together. So it's lovely to see you. Thank you so much, Tuhin, for inviting me to this episode of yours. And you asked me about how my suffer has been. So if I were to talk about the English equivalent of suffer, I'm afraid you're in for a long, sad story. So I would rather stick to the traditional or to the Hindi equivalent of the word suffer.
Okay.
And the only way I know how to explain myself is through song. So here goes.
Awesome.
Yeah. So here's something coming up for you. I
Wow.
hope you enjoy it. जिंदगी का सफर है ये कैसा सफर कोई समझा नहीं कोई जाना नहीं जिंदगी का सफर है ये कैसा सफर कोई समझा नहीं कोई जाना नहीं है ये कैसी डगर चलते हैं सब मगर कोई समझा नहीं कोई जाना नहीं जिंदगी को बहुत प्यार हमने दिया मौत से भी मोहब्बत निभाएंगे हम रोते रोते ज़माने में हंसते हंसते ज़माने से जाएंगे हम जाएंगे पर किधर है किसे ये खबर कोई समझा नहीं कोई जाना नहीं ऐसे जीवन भी है जो जिए ही से पहले ही मौत आ गई। फूल ऐसे भी हैं जो खिले ही नहीं, जिनको खिलने से पहले खिज़ा खा गई। है परेशान नजर, थक गए चार अगर, कोई समझा नहीं, कोई जाना नहीं। जिंदगी का सफर है ये कैसा सफर, कोई समझा नहीं, कोई जाना नहीं।
Wow, wow. Awesome, Dada, awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This would be the most melodious start which I had on any of my episode which is there. But I know your life is equally melodious. From a Bengali based in Chennai, I think you have started your career, you moved and worked in Australia. So let's hear it from your experience and your words.
Right. So now we are getting down to serious business.
Yes.
Okay. I was born in Calcutta, or Kolkata now, 1963.
Oh,
and
you don't
I
look
was
so
there
old. Are you sure it was
Okay.
63 or is it 73 or something? तो आधार कार्ड दिखाना पड़ेगा भैया, मतलब कागज दिखाना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो
you never
we will
know. I
not
mean,
believe.
Thank you so much. And I don't dye my hair either.
Yes, good.
But but then that's a beauty. When you have a Zoom program, you don't see the wrinkles, so probably camouflaged. So I was there for 6 years in Kolkata, and then during the troubled times, then we beat a hasty retreat. My father, sort of migrated to Delhi to learn his new, responsibilities with the engineering company. And after a year, we came to Chennai, just on the eve of the Bangladesh liberation war. I remember the one day that we had a blackout, and we were quite excited about it. So Kolkata, even though I have stayed for very, very few years of my life, and I can safely say I'm a Probashi Bengali, which means Bengali who has never or doesn't live in Kolkata and hasn't for a long time. I've still had the privilege of many, many visits through childhood, and many, many trips to my relations' places, and a lot of events in Kolkata when I was young. Right through my childhood, right down to adulthood, I've been visiting Kolkata, and I've been touching home base. So what draws me to that city are some of my most important things in life, which is music. And right from a very early age, I found that I had that yearning towards music. Apparently the very first song, Tuhin, which my parents tell me that I responded to, was Hemant Kumar or Hemant Mukherjee's song by Salil Chaudhary. Yes, exactly. Obak Prithivi. So that was a song which used to play on a 78 RPM record. And I remember it used to be placed on my grandmother's bedroom floor, and they used to wind it up, and I was propped up. I couldn't sit on my own, and I would listen eyes agog to that song, and when the song stopped, I would start crying. So from that age, they realized that I was into music. I think my grandmother sang well, and my mother also could sing a little bit. I wouldn't say I had a musical family in terms of, anybody who did a lot of public performances. But both my grandparents, my grandmothers were very, very good singers. My father was a good singer. In fact, it was he who uh, introduced me to my guru, Hemant Kumar, by taking me to his concert much later, when I was about 14 years old, in Chennai. So I was there for the first 6 years of my life, and I had a wonderful. I have very fond memories of Kolkata. I remember everything vividly, even though most people are not able to, remember their childhood. I have a very, very vivid memory of Kolkata, the New Market. I mean, those are the days. It was better than any shopping mall. I promise you that you see in today's. I mean, Tuhin, you've
Yeah,
been there. So
yes.
anybody who's been in Kolkata from in the 60s or 70s know and love what New Market has been to all of us.
Yes.
Even though now it's a shadow, but still, I still yearn to go there. And very early in life, when I started listening to music and all that, not just my performing part of it, but I'm saying as a avid listener. I started listening to music on my own quite early in life. And there was this very, very dear aunt of mine who realized that I wanted to control what I heard. And she taught me how to play the record player or the radiogram that we had at the age of 3.5.
Wow.
And we had a few LPs, some 78 RPM records and 45 RPM records, and she told me how to play that. And from that day onwards, nobody else in the family touched my radiogram. It was mine. And even later on, when I sort of migrated to Madras, and I prefer calling it Madras because my best memories out here were the times when this city was still called Madras. I used to go to Calcutta with whatever little pocket money I had. I would buy music. I would go to Harry's Music House. I would go to Melody. I would go to, which are the other places I've forgotten now? Bambino. Quite a few places. And I used to, ask them for kind of records which they didn't have stock of. So, and then, the Free School Street in Kolkata, second-hand records of my other favorite singer in the Western genre called Jim Reeves. So initially, interestingly, I started off with Western music because right here in Chennai, my school, obviously, there was no scope for Bengali music as such. Though I learned Rabindra Sangeet on my own from listening to records, my exposure to Bengali script was at the age of 4 or 5, first standard, and after that I didn't have any education. But I used to trouble my mother and my grandmother to learn the script, so at least I could read print. I still cannot read joint handwriting in Bengali, but I can read script. So I would learn how to read lyrics of Tagore songs, and I would sing along after learning them from the records. But my initial grooming or my initial contact with music in Chennai or Madras was Western music. Wonderful school which I attended here was Rutland House School, and they nurtured me from the age of 8. I started giving radio programs through the school, and through high school as well I did a few radio programs, and I ended up doing about 64 odd shows on the radio.
Wow.
On children's program. Then at age 15, I think,
This was All India Radio, or
all India radio.
okay.
Nothing else. There was no other channel.
And it had different things. So Chennai All India Radio was different than Kolkata All India Radio.
Yes, absolutely. This was not a national thing at all. This was very local, and there was a children's hour. and I used to perform. And I think out of 65 radio programs that I totally performed in, 61 or 62 had songs of Jim Reeves, who
Wow.
I was a huge fan of. And it was a Western music program by and large. And then I think at the age of 15, when
Just
I
one
was
more,
in,
something with curiosity. So at that point in time, how used to happen? They used to play the music at the background, or used to just sing the song without the music in this kind of?
you had to, you either sang without any accompaniment,
Mhm.
or you would carry your own accompaniment. And at that point of time, I just started learning the guitar. I was never a good guitarist. I learned a little bit of Spanish guitar, and I could accompany myself on rhythm. So that's how I used to accompany myself. So, I mean, you were left to your own resources. Of course, there was this Padma Shri handle manual uncle who used to sometimes accompany us, and we've done a few special programs with him on All India Radio. And there, on when I was 15, I had my first television program, which was a live performance for 10 minutes. And that was also Western music.
Which year
It
was it?
was, that was about 78, 1978. Mod World, I earned 50 rupees,
Wow,
which was big,
big
which was
princely
big
sum.
those days. Yeah. I mean, I mean, I wouldn't earn that kind of pocket money. My pocket money was 15 rupees a month. Yeah. So, I mean, this was big money. So, yeah. So then I think something unusual for any middle income family who would be focused on the career of their children and usually went by the beaten path. And more often than not, Bengali families who are not really business oriented would tend to stick to the beaten path. And I was asked when I was very young, so do you want to become an engineer? Babar moton engineer hobe? Dadur moton railways e join korbe? So I mean, you want to join railways like your grandfather? I said, no. I mean, so I was very vociferous. Uh, I think I was 10 years old, and my father once called me over and in front of my mom, and he told me this, look, both of us realize as parents that, you are very inclined towards music more than perhaps anything else. What do you want us to do? Do you want to major in this right away? Do you want to stop everything else and just get into the music field? Can we help you in some way? Because we don't have a background, you see, in music. But if you think you've got any ideas, we'd like to help you, either to groom yourself or take a path. And I was a foolish boy, and I didn't have many options. I didn't know many options. There weren't too many options, except perhaps the legends themselves, who had their who were gutsy enough to stake out on their own. But without any connections here, I mean, there was nothing I could do. So I turned to another aunt of mine in Calcutta called Ms. Bulbul Sarkar. She was the station director of All India Radio Calcutta, and she was very well known. And she was a singer herself at one stage, an opera singer. She had judged performances in Vienna, and she told me that, look, why don't you get grooming in Hindustani classical? I don't see too many Western, classical options for you over here in terms of vocal training. I think you should try and pick up some Hindustani classical and get your grooming there, which was very sound advice, but I was very indisciplined. You know me. I've been a handful. So I could never,
Which I will want to disagree. I found you to be one of the most disciplined person.
oh wow,
But
you must
this
tell
has
this
to
to the
be,
rest of my.
yeah, but then it has to be something which you like. So maybe
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
taking of classes was not something which excited you. Possibly, I'm not sure, but
No, I enjoyed my training. It's just that whenever training went on to a more creative you know, aspect. It always excited me more than some kind of, something which is more mundane or product related, So I think both of us have similar, thoughts on that. No, so I did a little bit of singing. I had a tutor, but it didn't last very long, and I can't say I learned much. Uh, my gurus truly were the legendary singers, either Western or Indian, and I guess I always liked Hemant Kumar, for instance, as a singer, because I heard him for the first time in 1976 when my father took me to watch a program of his in Chennai. It impacted me so much that at the end of the program, I went back home, found a dhoti, somehow draped myself in it, and sat in front of my harmonium, which I just bought, and I started singing. But I didn't know I had any kind of affinity towards Hemant Kumar. I would sing everybody's songs. And till one day, I went on a school excursion and to Kolkata. And my class teacher was there with me, and it was a competition, all India competition. And he said, Surojit, we are in Calcutta. Why don't you, give us an idea of what Bengali music is about? So I sang a song from the film Siddharth, O Nodire.
Oh, wow.
He hadn't heard the song, but he heard me sing, and he said, "You've got a voice exactly like Hemant Kumar." So I was egged on, and I gave him "Tere Dwar Khada Ek Jogi." He said, "This is what I mean." I still didn't take him seriously. It was many, many performances later, private performances in clubs. I had not yet turned professional then. I was going through school and college and all that kind. The public would give me a very, very good response, which was very nice of them, to whatever song I sang. But the moment I ended up singing a song of Hemant Kumar, everybody would sort of sit up. I would notice that there was a visible change in the way the audience responded thereafter. And the requests thereafter would come for more songs of Hemant. So that's when I realized. And then organizers, when they started looking for talent scouting, and I had my first few organizers in Chennai who gave me a break, They started saying, look, you should sing songs of Hemant Kumar. And before I knew it, I had sort of become like, Hemant Kumar had become that all-time guru of mine before I knew it. And I think I was so much in love with his music that right till the very end of his singing, I bought every record I could get my hands off on of Hemant Kumar. And that tradition continues till today. But so that's my listening part of it. And then I was working. My Safar included school education in Chennai mainly, college education in Noida College in English literature. And I didn't know what kind of job to get into. So this typical dilemma, of the Indian graduate who doesn't know which field to enter into.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do an MBA. I really didn't. And I wanted to work. But there was nothing which would allow me to enter a profession without an additional qualification. Then somebody interviewed me from a company called Gestetna. And that zonal manager, Mr. Raval, said, Surojit, welcome to a profession where you can write your own paycheck. And that was a career in sales. So from a very I had a very wide range of interests. On one hand, I was passionately interested in music, but I didn't know that I would be able to take it anywhere. The other aspect was that I wanted to get into a job, and I did. I was in sales and did fairly all right. There was another interest of mine which got grounded before it started, really, and that was flying. I wanted to become a pilot.
Wow.
And I joined the Madras Flying Club, and in very difficult times, the club was not doing too well financially, and I was one of the few guys who got in through scholarship. But because of its finances, it was a dwindling career. Overall, Indian Airlines and Vayudut were the only airlines, and it didn't offer a very good career path. So after learning a little bit about flying, I regrettably had to sort of, continue with a more mainstream profession. So I continued in sales and marketing. Then in '87, I had an opportunity of applying for a, a youth exchange or a work exchange program to Australia. So I was with ANZ Bank, and it was a joint venture between ANZ Bank and American Field Service, or AFS. And I was one of the 4 Indians who qualified for that program. And I was in Melbourne for a year, working with the ANZ Bank. And through AFS, I was staying with 3 wonderful Australian families who till today are like my own family. Or not, I don't, it would be wrong to say like my own family. I consider them to be my family. I had the most wonderful 1 year in Australia, and I sang. Through the exchange program, I told them, look, I want to perform here. So somebody suggested I join the Melbourne Youth Choir, and I had a most wonderful innings of 1 year. Came back to India after a year. They were very generous to offer the 4 of us employment with their their counterparts here in India, which was Grindlays Bank. And for about 5 years, totally from the time I started in Australia, I was with Grindlays, ANZ, and then with Grindlays for 5 years. Then, round about 92, I decided that more than a process-driven kind of work environment, I wanted to get back into something which was more my kind of personality, which was to do with people. And I joined NIS Pata and spent about 8 wonderful years with them, learned soft skills training with them, and I headed the training function, I headed the sales function in the career division and also in the corporate division. I was the dean of students for a while, and 8 beautiful years with where I learned not just the basics, but also a bit of management training, so soft skills for lower to senior management, and that was the stepping stone to where we met.
Yes.
In 2003. So when I joined the industry of life insurance training, that's where this training background which I had with NIS Pata came in handy. And so if you look at my training career, which was yet another profession which I grew into and thoroughly enjoyed, because in a way it was performing. Because it was very interactive, and where in the kind of training that we were involved in.
Yeah.
So 19 years of soft skills training before one day it dawned me that I can let life pass me by. And I asked myself a long, hard question that yes, corporate life was giving me a certain element of comfort. It was giving me a certain status. It was giving me a certain lifestyle and stability also. But at the same time, there was a huge void. I believe that I was born to perform, to sing, and to get into the field of music in some form, which was far more active than I was. I always kept in touch with music. I was always performing, even with, you remember, I used to, during the weekends, I used
Weekend
to
you
fly
used
off
to
to
go and
Bombay.
yeah,
Yeah, so I took permission from our company,
management
telling
and
them that, look, I mean, if you don't mind, I mean, this has nothing to do with the insurance industry, but I mean, this is something which I'd like to also pursue. And they were very kind to let me do that. In fact, Tuhin, if you remember, just a year before I actually quit the industry, I informed the management that I planned to quit within a year because I really wanted, that's where my heart was.
yeah.
But like everybody else, I was pussyfooting. I was not sure when is the right moment. Until one day, it was like a eureka. And I said, what am I doing here? I've had my innings. It has been lovely. And but now it's time to start a new chapter. I wasn't sure. I was about 45 years old, Tuhin, and to start a music career professionally. I've been performing semi-professionally till then. But to break into a completely new area, to charter a new course at that age, if you typically were to look at the rich dad, poor dad kind of an example, this would be a no-no from the poor dad perspective. I mean,
Yes.
you would have to stick to the beaten track. And so there were a few well-meaning friends who said, but at this age, you really think stable job? I said, there is nothing stable in life. Life itself is very wobbly and very exciting. So, I mean, I don't see, at the moment, at the most, I won't be able to make a mark. I always have training or, my education to back me up. But this is where my heart is. This is where my life is. This is where my suffer is. And 2011, that magic evening, I took that decision. It was a Thursday or a Friday. I think it was a Friday evening. And I took a decision. And the next day morning, I wrote this little letter to the management saying that it's been wonderful being with you. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of the journey for about 8 long years with you. But now I think I have to find my path. The head of training then mentioned in one of those meetings that I'm going to stop Surojit from, taking this decision. Until Sridhar Ramurthy actually told him, have you heard him sing? So he said, no, I haven't. I said, you should. Then you'll let him go. So I had, I had a lot of love when I left ING also. I was very, very fond of so many. I mean, I left wonderful colleagues like you. But I knew that with the dear friends I had made throughout my life in my various jobs and careers, these things don't end. This go on to different beginnings. And that moment my heart sang. I have never felt freedom so much as that day onwards. And touch wood, I don't know, some wood nearby me, ever since I took the decision, I'm not saying that I'm a legend. Far from it. I'm an amateur singer. But at the same time, I believe that the trials, tribulations have been worth it. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey in music. And I look forward with excitement, despite all the kind of challenges which we're having today,
That
I'm
is the
looking
last
forward
1 year.
to,
Yeah.
yes, the last 1 year. And I think difficulty is the motherhood of all creativity. And many of us in the music field, fortunately, learned how to adapt ourselves to a different mode of expressing ourselves through the kind of media that we are using today. Except that I think I used a lot of my time to learn up technology, which I never did earlier.
mm,
I mean, it was just a performance, but it was this time I really looked upon how to learn new technology and deliver it in a way that would be palatable to an audience if I had to make it more professional. So we all hate the pandemic. There's no doubt about it. I mean, our finance, the common denominator is we are all broke.
yeah,
We are all broke. But, a certain amount of resilience, I think all of us
yeah,
have picked up.
yes,
And for that, I'm very, very grateful. Not to the pandemic, but I'm grateful that we have been somewhere nudged and guided by forces that may be to allow us to understand that we are more than what we thought we were capable of.
mm,
And that is wonderful. That has toughened us up.
mm,
What seemed to be absolutely a despairing situation. We wouldn't know what the next month, whether we would be able to survive up to the next month. I'm sure all of us went through.
yeah,
Very few people would be unscathed,
mm,
unless you were, a multimillionaire.
mm,
All of us went through this. I think I'm grateful, like so many of the others, who found their feet to some extent and were able to sort of broad base our talent or our capabilities further. So that way, yeah. So by and large, this has been my suffer,
mm.
and
I think it's wonderful, and I think it just summarizes how all of us are going through. There are different aspirations which you have, and then we are trying to manage it. I think a very good lesson for many people will be, as an artist, you still continue doing what you do, and maybe get something else happening for you, so that the finances in the initial years are there.
yes,
And
yes, yes.
as you said, because any kind of art and music in particular might only few people can get to the top. There can be 10 top singers and all, and they will make some great money. Many of us might not be able to do that. Okay, I think wonderful. I think we have been talking for the last 40 minutes. uh, I think we'll have to come back for one more thing in a future thing, where I think we'll talk about more aspect. There are so many questions I have on my mind. But
Okay.
before we end this particular thing, so जिंदगी का सफर हो गया, इसके आगे क्या, मतलब let's end with that, and maybe on a musical note.
Okay, so let's take it to a logical next step forward. And again, how best can I possibly express this other than music? So, Zindagi Ka Safar is very philosophical, rather pensive.
Hmm.
I would like to sing another song which is also philosophical, but perhaps on a happier note, because
Okay.
I think as we are all sort of gearing up our arms and armors to fight certain situations which are external to us,
Hmm.
we are also learning how to choke back our tears and to look at the excitement of it all and not allow an external situation to cower us down.
Hmm.
Yes, sometimes we do get beaten,
Hmm.
but what makes us tick, what makes us rise again from those ashes like a phoenix, and the uncertainty of life is as beautiful as, because in life you can have the predictable, you can have a wonderful source of income, you can have everything,
Hmm.
but even in Nazrul Giti, which is very philosophical and talks about how different life can be for different people, different
Hmm.
stages of time.
Hmm.
ekul bhange okul gade ei to nodir khela. So you know your the the fortunes can change any moment for anybody.
Hmm.
It's as uncertain, but there is beauty in this uncertainty, and this song is dedicated to you, Sudhin, and to all our wonderful listeners who've been patient enough.
Thank you. Thanks.
जिंदगी एक सफर है सुहाना, यहाँ कल क्या हो किसने जाना। जिंदगी एक सफर है सुहाना, यहाँ कल क्या हो किसने जाना। हाँ, जिंदगी एक सफर है सुहाना, यहाँ कल क्या हो किसने जाना। ओले ओले ओ, ओले ओले ओ, ओले ओले ओ, ओले ए, टिट 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 ए, टिट 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 ए। चांद तारों से चलना है आगे, आसमानों से बढ़ना है आगे। अरे चांद तारों से चलना है आगे, आसमानों से बढ़ना है आगे। पीछे रह जाएगा ये जमाना, यहाँ कल क्या हो किसने जाना। हाँ, जिंदगी एक सफर है सुहाना, यहाँ कल क्या हो किसने जाना। हंसते गाते जहाँ से गुजर, दुनिया की तू परवाह न कर। हंसते गाते जहाँ से गुजर, दुनिया की तू परवाह न कर। मुस्कुराते हुए दिन बिताना, यहाँ कल क्या हो किसने जाना। हाँ, जिंदगी एक सफर है सुहाना, यहाँ कल क्या हो किसने जाना। लय लय ओ, लय 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 ओ, लय टिट 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 टिट। मौत आनी है आएगी एक दिन, जान जानी है जाएगी एक दिन। अरे मौत आनी है आएगी एक दिन, जान जानी है जाएगी एक दिन। ऐसी बातों से क्या घबराना, यहाँ कल क्या हो किसने जाना। हाँ, जिंदगी एक सफर है सुहाना, यहाँ कल क्या हो किसने जाना। हाँ, जिंदगी एक सफर है सुहाना, यहाँ कल क्या हो किसने जाना।
Oh, wow, 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 wow. Sir,
Thank you,
this has been,
thank you so much.
yes, I think it was such a wonderful talking to you and getting to know about
Thank you.
what all you have done. And I think hats off to your passion. And
Thank you so much, sir.
I think the music has been so refreshing. I'm feeling so
Thanks.
refreshed at this time in the night, which is there. Thanks a lot. We
Pleasure's
have
mine.
to definitely do one more because there are so many aspects which I wanted to talk to you, and we will definitely do it in a future episode.
Sure,
Wish you
sure.
all the best, Surojit. May God bless you.
Thank you so much, Tuhin, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful innings together, and we'll go through this pandemic and we'll beat it. And I look
Definitely.
forward to meeting you in person. And
Yes,
maybe we should have an
definitely.
episode with you. We'll have
Yes,
to have you in as the epicenter of this. Yeah.
yes,
So
we'll
maybe I'll
definitely
do
do
that
that.
for you one day.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Tuhin. God
Thanks a
bless.
lot, Suraj.
Take care.
Take care.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.